time where government can take the people's right from them. And there is a reason why the drafters of the Constitution mentioned the right to media in the Constitution. There are real issues that are being raised.
That is true.
That's true. I hope they'll be successful. But I hope the success doesn't mean a handshake, because I don't think that is the solution
To our problems.
to our problems.
That is a solution to
Two people's problems. Exactly.
Yeah?
I think what is making people more angry is the action of government when things are bad.
Allocating more funds.
I looked at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. They had a very beautiful manifesto, but nothing.
Nilikuambia kwa ground. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. And welcome to Tek4Peace with Christine Magoma and Muthuri here. On today's video, we're going to be discussing the current political affairs in our country, Kenya, especially the protests from a law perspective, constitutional perspective, civic perspective. I'm not sure whether I butchered one of those words. Is it civic perspective? Is there a thing like civic perspective?
You can create something like that.
I can create. In short, there's nothing like that.
Civic Space, but yeah.
Civic Space?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Welcome to Tek4Peace.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Kindly introduce yourself.
So my name is Muthuri Kathure. Mimi ni mwanasheria. Mimi nafanya kazi na shirika la Article 19. Work with an organization called Article 19 that basically defends freedom of expression and access to information. We're a global organization working on different issues, but I head the Civic Space and digital rights and policy programs in Eastern Africa.
So how does the civic space look like?
In terms of Kenya or general, okay. So I would say it's shrinking. If you look at the recent reports, the Civicus report that was released, I think, last week. If you look at index censorship, if you look at our report at Article 19 for 2022, you realize that we are not in the best of the places. If you compare us regionally with other countries, we might be ahead, but then I would say with the happenings that are happening now, the space is shrinking. And some of the indicators of a shrinking civic space is mainly muzzling of freedom of expression.
Yeah.
So once you see attacks on media, once you see political rhetoric against media, suggestion or introduction of laws or policies that are likely to hinder freedom of expression and access to information, then you realize the space is shrinking. And that's what we've seen in the recent past.
Our Kenyan constitution tells us that, or rather stipulates that we have the right to protest. Please tell me about that in comparison to the international space and the right to protest.
Great. So yeah, we all know, and I think because of the happenings that have, because of what has been happening, now I think most Kenyans realize it's their constitutional right to protest. It's very, very well enshrined in the Constitution. We also have international instruments that we have ratified as a country, and we are part of. We are a party to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, ICCPR, the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the African Charter on People and Human Rights, which all stipulates that everyone has the right to freedom of expression through protest.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you look at our constitution, it does provide for that, and internationally we are part of instruments that also provides for the right to peaceful protest.
So when then can a government or people who have power say that you cannot go to protest?
There can never be a time where government can take the people's right from them. But the constitution provides for limitation of rights. Rights can be limited. There are rights that can be limited. There are rights that can never be limited.
Okay.
And in law, we call them absolute rights. So, for example, the right to fair trial can never be limited. even if you've killed someone, even if you're the worst of the worst, you have to go through the trial process fairly. The right to from torture cannot be limited because we banned things like corporal punishment. Before you'd hear someone has been sentenced to 10 years with 10 strokes. That doesn't happen anymore. In school, people are not caned. So that one is also absolute. Freedom from slavery, because slavery was banned worldwide. It's an absolute right. So there are times that the Constitution provides for the limitation of rights, and we saw that during the COVID period, where some rights were limited. Our right to protest and our right to conscious religion, we could not go to church, right to movement, there was curfew, and there was that limitation. But then the Constitution says there are parameters that are provided for when you're limiting rights. So the first one is it necessary? So you have to show the necessity for you to limit the right. The second thing is the limitation must be for you not when right is limited, it can be limited for another person to enjoy. For example, you have the right to protest, but you cannot protest in my property. The Constitution provides for the right. It just says you have the right to protest, picket, peacefully assemble. The Public Order Act comes to give power to that article of the Constitution. So the Public Order Act is the one that tells you where do you protest and where not to protest, how do you protest. It brings about the issues of notice. So you need to give a notice for you to protest, which sometimes is mistaken to a permission. So you don't need permission to go to protest. So that is one of the negative narratives created. So you'll hear even the IG coming saying, I've not given permission for this protest. You don't need to give permission.
Just a notice.
You just need to take a notice, and the law says you need to take it to a regulating officer. And if you look at the Public Order Act, the regulating officer is the officer commanding a police station. And then ideally what they should do is receive your notice of protest and acknowledge. The only time the law expects that the officer commanding a police station will tell you no is if another person has booked to protest at the same place that you want to. Otherwise, they're not supposed to stop you from doing it. Protest happens between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. But other forms of protest that happens beyond 6 p.m. You see, like online protest. You can continue with your hashtags and everything at night. Night vigils. Things like you can boycott anytime. It's only the demonstration one and the picketing mostly that happens between 6 to 6. But then on the other side, I think protesters and the organizers of protest really need to put a lot of work. I usually say protest can take 3 hours, but the work that goes into it before the protest is what will determine if your protest will be peaceful but also successful. Because you can have protests but are not successful. We've seen successful and peaceful protests in this country. We've seen protests by women when it comes to my dress, my choice. Someone was arrested who did that. We've seen we are enjoying Uhuru Park because people, Wangari Maathai and others went to the street to protest. We've seen people being held accountable for extrajudicial killing because people went to the street. Now, there's a case against Rashid, the police officer who's alleged to be very notorious in extrajudicial killings.
But now I'm curious. So is it that we have leaders who do not understand their roles and their mandate to the citizens? Or is it that we just have leaders who will say anything and everything? And what's the consequence of that?
I don't think it's leaders who do not understand. It's leaders who assume people do not understand. So trying to take advantage of people's ignorance.
Yeah.
But we all know that there has been stigma around the right to protest. Right from the community, from the leadership, from government, and sometimes even media.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is there is a huge uptake of the right to protest. Beyond the Azimio maandamano, we had seen a number of protests. Even after Monday protest on Tuesday, Eric Omondi was on the street protesting, carrying CVs.
Yeah.
That's protest. I think as we're having this conversation, what I'm saying is there's a political conversation to the right to protest, but there's genuine issues that people that want to raise. There are successful protests, sometimes not reported because You say when a man bites a dog, that's news, but when a dog bites the man, it's not news. So
that's normal.
Yeah, that's normal. So
Yeah.
if protests are held peacefully and they end successfully, it's not reported.
What is the role of the media in all of this from a legal perspective? Because you see, very many people fear based on what they watch. Others are more aware. So how do we balance that out?
You know, what people need to appreciate is freedom of expression and access to information are facilitative rights. And what that means is for you to enjoy your other fundamental freedoms and rights in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, the right to expression and access to information is very fundamental, is the basis. For you to know where a hospital is, you need to access information.
Yeah.
For you to demand for your other right to housing, your other right to food, shelter, you need to express yourself. And leaders know the moment you shrink these rights, freedom of expression and access to information, then you're able to violate the other rights. The moment that you don't know you're right, the moment that you don't know, the moment that the media is shut down, the moment that the media is attacked, is the moment that other rights are also, other things takes place. And there is a reason why the drafters of the Constitution mentioned the right to media in the Constitution and expressly protected it, freedom of media. Because there's no other profession, even the legal profession is not mentioned or protected in the Constitution.
Yeah.
But media as a profession is, because it's through media that we know things that are happening. It's through media that we knew about the COVID billionaires. It's through people like African ancestors that we know what's happening. They uncover things that we need to know. It's through media that we also express ourselves. So media plays a very critical role in giving information to the people. And so people know that the moment you attack media is the moment that you are able to control, do any other things behind the curtain. So media plays a very, very critical in informing the people and allowing people to also express themselves.
And how does the new media come into this? Because it's one thing to say that I'm informing people, but I mean, Tek4Peace is here to especially combat disinformation. People are saying that ABCD is going to happen, XYZ has already happened. Some of it is true, majority of it actually is not true. It's a lot of disinformation. And then it's disinformation that's causing a lot of division. So how do we deal with that?
First of all, I think to start off, I think citizen journalism has brought a lot of revolution in terms of protection of civic space and even media space as well. I think now you, with your Android phone, you capture things and things can happen. So it plays a very critical role. But unfortunately, unlike the mainstream media, there are no issues like code of conduct. It's not really guided like, there's a code of conduct when you're doing for mainstream media, and that allows for a lot of disinformation and misinformation. A lot of work needs to be put to counter that. We saw before election and during election, a lot of interventions have been put. But what I say is, unfortunately, after that, people have pulled back. But disinformation happens every day. Even some of the clips that were shared by DCI, for example, was purely disinformation. They
actually leading the disinformation.
Yes. So even now, even beyond election, misinformation project, they need to be put in place for that work. But beyond that, I think social media platforms have got a responsibility to also play when it comes to this, because this most of the time happens in their spaces. It's Facebook, it's Meta, it's in Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and things like that. What are they doing to do that? But what we've seen is there's little or no intervention by these media platforms. And when it comes to content moderation, you realize there's not a lot of investment in it. How many content moderators are there for Meta, for example, in Kenya? How many languages do they speak? How many staff do they even have for the region and things like that? Context and what have you. So there's a lot of gap. There's a huge gap when it comes to countering misinformation and disinformation.
Do you think these are going to be successful protests?
I hope they'll be successful. I hope, because there are real issues that are being raised.
That is true.
That's true. I hope they'll be successful. But I hope the success doesn't mean a handshake, because I don't think that is the solution
to our problems.
To our problems.
That is a solution to two people's problems.
Exactly. I hope we'll not see people just sharing power, sitting around and saying, I hope the conversation will be around Mwananchi, because Mwananchi is the one who's doing anakula tear gas huko hivyo. Conversation about unga, conversation about the cost of living. But even the people who are not protesting, because I was having this conversation with someone who we are assuming their business are being affected, have been affected by the cost of living.
That's true.
So even them, in a way, this protest works for them. If anything will happen. And I think what is making people more angry is the action of government when things are bad.
Allocating more funds.
To
very unnecessary.
That is what is making people angry. Yeah. Even we have issues. Then you have 50 CAS. We saw one former CAS trying to explain to us how he was handling the job of 7 CAS who've been appointed now. We're seeing money being allocated, millions of money buying cars.
For cars,
for the office of the spouse of the prime minister. Come on, that's what's making people angry. Time might be tough,
and that's debt money.
Yes, so you've probably come into the presidency at a very difficult time, but you're making the situation even worse by your action. I looked at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. They had a very beautiful manifesto, but nothing. Nothing.
We're fond of writing very
beautiful
articles.
I hope they can go back to that manifesto and start the things that we were promised within 6 months.
Yeah.
We failed the gender rule from the word go, the first appointment of cabinet secretary. We've totally failed the youth and inclusion. There are no young people in any appointment. No, at all. Like zero. Like there's no one who's under 35.
Youth now 39.
That's the problem now. So you're being told the cabinet secretary for youth,
and you're like,
and then even the CAS that you were legally CAS, there's no even youth. The person you're trying to make us think they are youth, they're not youth.
So, and then who do they go to appoint? Is there a basis for electing or appointing people to office? Is it based on qualification and merit, or that I know you?
Yeah, it was what we've seen is now just political, saying thank you to political people who campaigned for you.
Supported me. Let's go this way.
Yeah, take this position. There's not. The government has really failed. The way the constitution anticipated the cabinet secretary, for example, would be like very technical people. Close your eyes and think about some of the people who've been appointed to this position. You wonder if they have the technical expertise in the areas that they've been appointed to. It's a few that vetted by government, by parliament. We gave the power to them, so the people did vet them because we gave our power to parliament. But what has happened now in parliament is people have numbers. That's what they're using. But even beyond numbers, the opposition is very weak. People are being brought to the other side.
But do they realize the long-term effects? Because you see, the other thing that I keep on thinking about is, it's one thing for me to say that I will benefit right now, but how does this country look like? Where I will live, my children and etc., the next generation for the next 10 years or 50 years, once I exit the world, what am I leaving behind? Because it's so easy for me to be bought off right now, yeah? And that's what we are having, or allegedly, yeah? We have people who are being bought off. But for what reason? And where does that leave the future?
I remember reading a book called No One Cares for the New Millennium. And I not just those in political position. We don't care. Even our small acts, even the way we are not careful about the environment. It's not just we are very quick to look at them. Of course, they have a duty.
That's true.
Constitutional duty to do things. But all of us looks like we don't care. If I get a position and I know there's an illegal position, I take it up. Utakuwa unadiona tena nichukuliwe CS. Na mimi najua kisheria CS position, the law said, first and foremost, if you look at it, there is, of course, the court allowed up to a certain number. Then we went up to 50. But still, I will take it because I want money. I don't care about you and the other people who are on the streets. Deals are being had. When you're buying yourself, you're allocating yourself 841 million to buy cars.
Just cars.
Just cars.
We have not looked at housing, anything. Your own stuff.
We're being told State House is spending 4 point something million per day to host religious gatherings.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I am a Christian, a believer.
Yes.
But please educate me about faith diplomacy.
I mean, I'm also a Christian. I'm a very believer, a practicing Catholic. And we have the right to religion. But we have always to realize that this is not a religious state. It's a secular state.
Yeah.
So even atheists have got a place in Kenya.
Are you sure you want that to go out?
Yes.
In part of this video, even atheists have got.
They have place. They have an organization in Kenya. And I've said this, and I've actually written about it. We cannot dictate what we believe on other people's. That is how the constitution is. Yeah. I might be having my disagreement with you, but unfortunately, I have to keep quiet and allow you enjoy your religion. But what we've seen is it's not just in Kenya. It's a trend globally. The rise of the left wing. We saw the Trump. It's called Trumpism or something. We've seen the anti-LGBTI movements around the world. We saw what happened in Uganda, the anti-homosexuality bill, the place of evangelical church in most of this conversation. Even as we're talking about religion, you have to also realize that with the new government, there's a certain religious groups, or I don't know how I can put it. It's more an evangelical taking over in that space. It's not just religion where
it's not Christians.
It's not Christian or Muslims or
we're narrowing it down to a particular denomination.
Yeah, and if you look at the trend in other countries, like even the US, where evangelical conversation has come into the space, you realize like civic rights and freedoms sometimes are infringed. The Constitution expects Article 27 that there's no discrimination based on any ground to anyone. So if I start discriminating you because you're not evangelical, public functions turned into an evangelical affair. The State House has become, we've had alleged conversation about people being told to fast and things like that, you cannot impose that on me. Let me do what I want because the Constitution says this is the way to go. We need to be very careful about that.
So what are the dangers of that? Because you see, from my understanding, during colonialism, what happened is they brought religion, and very many people might fight me on this. I might be losing or increasing some subscribers here.
Yeah.
They brought religion and took resources. So it's a give and take. And majority of the times, some atrocities were committed in the name of religion. And what's the solution? Not go to court. It is forgive your neighbor. Yeah. So are we headed there as a country? And what does that mean to our development?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the place in if you look at as other countries where evangelical church has taken the center stage in state issues.
Give us an example.
The US during the Trump era, we saw a lot of that coming up and talking about it. You realize fundamental freedoms, especially around conscience, around other religion feeling inferior, the right to minority and marginalized groups, conversation about sexual and reproductive health rights, things like that. We had, unfortunately, the CS of health in Kenya saying, we know teenage pregnancy is something. Yeah. And those conversations need to be had truthfully and openly. But we had her saying, we will pray for them.
They should abstain.
She should abstain. Is that real? That is the problem now. That is now the challenge that this religion and things
still pregnancy is on the rise.
It's a real issue. Let's deal with it as an issue. It's true. Let's pray. Let's teach abstinence. But then let's be honest with ourselves. And then this is coming from someone who's heading the health ministry. So we need to be those are some of the effects of allowing religion to be at the center of every conversation.
Okay, this has been interesting. Thank you very much.
I hope you got it was a good use of your time.
Yes, it was very
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
I could continue, but audience retention.
That's fine. Yeah.
Guys, thank you for sticking around. Please like, subscribe, and share if you agree or do not agree with anything that, especially Muthuri has said.
Okay.
If you agree or disagree with anything we have said, drop a comment down below and we'll be sure to address it. Do you have a parting shot for us?
Yeah. So back to the main conversation, the protest one. My parting shot is to every stakeholder. I think there are real conversations that are in this country and need to be had. Them chesting will not help. Going out and issuing statements like I'm banning protest or Monday is the last protest that you'll ever have.
And then shock on you.
That's unnecessary. I don't think that's what needs to be had. Let's adhere to the law. To the protesters, I think protest peacefully. That's what I would say. There's no need to harm other people or loot people's property. The moment you do that, then you water down the whole essence of Article 37 of the Constitution, the right to protest. For it to be credible and for it to be seen as a right thing, it needs to be done peacefully. To the law enforcement, I would say I hope you have subscribers who are police officers. I mean, things have changed. We are not in the old constitution. We need to change our mentality very, very much. We saw a time where a police boss in this country was taken to ICC. It's very possible. We've seen police officers, junior, who are trigger happy, being arrested, being prosecuted, being sent to jail. You'll be held liably personally for your action. So be careful. Don't find yourselves in the wrong place just because you're too excited to throw a tear gas canister or something. Yeah, so that would be my parting shot.
To the media and new media like me.
And to the media, I mean, you're doing a good job. Let me start by that. And media is at the center of any democratic and open space. Information sharing, our ability to express is on the freedom of media. Keep doing your job. Don't be biased. Don't find yourself taking sides. But also, they say there's no story that is worth dying for.
Yeah.
Be careful when you're out there, when you're covering the stories. Take care of yourself as you're covering the story. But kudos, I think so far so good. The media has been doing a good job.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Tell your people to like, subscribe, and share.
Okay. I
By
nearly said welcome to my channel.
Just
Okay.
tell them. Welcome them. It's our channel.
Yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, to this channel.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.